Today, Fox News' Ruth Raj went one-on-one with presidential hopeful Joe Biden. They talked about Governor Whitmer, her strategy, and about Biden's plan to reopen the country.
Still too early to open up businesses, in my view, based on all the experts I've spoken to, that where there's very close proximity, where you can't make social distancing work, beauty shops, barber shops, etc. And so I think they should continue to wait till they flatten that curve, which is now sort of flattened and is beginning to move down in a big way.
Presidential hopeful Joe Biden talking exclusively to Fox 2 about Michigan coronavirus and how he says he would handle the pandemic if he were president.
We got to focus more, though, on getting the money to the small businesses. Too much is going to the publicly owned corporations, and it should get to the small businesses. And the unemployment checks, anybody making less than $75,000 a year in a new process is basically held harmless. And so we should be doing that. There's other things we can do as well. I think we should be focusing on making sure that those businesses that can open, you're in a position where you don't fire anyone. Everybody does half the job they were doing before, and the government makes up the difference. So everybody gets their full salary, but you're able to keep a full workforce.
So, Mr. Biden, is there anything that the Trump administration has done during this COVID-19 crisis that you've liked?
Well, I think what it's done appropriately is that it started off talking about the need to have the social distancing, realizing that, starting off by listening to the scientists, listen to Dr. Fauci and others. But, there's some specific things they should have been doing immediately. We should fully empower a supply commander here. Here in Michigan, where your testing is far behind the levels that are needed for testing supplies. You ought to create a Defense Production Act for banks so that banks don't just service the big operations, but service the small operations, because they're being covered. Establish a pandemic testing board to finally solve the testing problem.
And while everyone realizes the health crisis that's happening here, the economic crisis is hitting a lot of people, especially hard in counties that haven't been hit by COVID-19. They're trapped in their homes. They're not able to work. This has really hit them very hard.
I think it is. And I think it is. But what we do know also is that when you allow it all to just open up, what happens is people begin to move, and it moves to rural areas. You're seeing it happen all around the country. And, look, it seems to me that the choice between public health and the economy is a false choice. We have to get the number of cases sufficiently down. We have to have widespread available testing. We have to ensure hospitals are ready for flare-ups. We have to convene top experts as to how they go about it, business experts as well. Call them in and say, how are you going to keep your plan open? Tell me how you're going to deal with social distancing. Tell me what your safeguards are going to be.
And finally, since Governor Gretchen Whitmer's name has been tossed into the realm of vice presidential candidates, we asked him how serious he was in considering her.
I mean that sincerely. I really do. The way she handles crisis, the way she stands up, her strength, the way she has moved forward, I think she's a real leader.
All right, so what's that look like for the two of you?
I think there are a number of women who are ready on day one, if God forbid something happened, to immediately become president. And I think she fits in that category, but there's a number of other women as well. We're now just setting up the mechanism by how we go about choosing a woman for that job, and she's surely one of the people I'll be looking at.
We should mention that the focus of this interview with Vice President Joe Biden was all local, talking about Michigan, the COVID-19 crisis, and his thoughts on the governor. We discussed our questions with his staff beforehand, before we actually did the interview. We should mention also that this is the same thing that happened when we interviewed President Donald Trump exclusively one-on-one in January. Our questions were submitted beforehand. We talked to them about what they could expect, and we kept it local there as well. In both interviews, the focus was sharply on the state of Michigan and Metro Detroit. Ruth Raj, Fox 2 News.